The Democratic socialist who just won the Democratic primary in New York City, Zohran Mamdani, is holding an event right now with leaders and members of the city's labor unions. President Trump made these remarks about him.
Your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zohran Mamdani, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zohran Mamdani?
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation.
Mamdani responded with this, quote, his statements just don't represent an attack, or don't just represent an attack on our democracy, but an attempt to send a message to every New Yorker who refuses to hide in the shadows. If you speak up, they will come for you, end of quote. Some Republicans are looking to use Mamdani's victory to their advantage, tying the Democratic Party directly to him. Here's one Republican advisor.
I think Republicans see an opportunity to benefit from a pick-your-poison, fairly radical candidate who supports everything from, as you were saying, defunding the police, which is about a 90-10 issue, to things like, socialism that has already tried and failed before, and a number of other policies that I think Republicans feel they have an opportunity to really capitalize on.
But remember the mess that Democrats have on their hands since their losses in November of 2024. The far left is energized by Mamdani's win after the DNC pushed out that young activist, David Hogg. The Hill is reporting Mamdani's win could boost David Hogg's effort to wage primary challenges on just moderate or even far left Democrats. Maybe they're not far enough, those incumbents. Here's a quote. Hogg and other progressives have positioned Mamdani's victory as a blueprint for advancing new future for Democrats. In Focus Now, Jason Chaffetz, Fox News contributor and former Republican congressman of Utah. Your take.
The Democrats are having a problem. First of all, they put up a terrible candidate, Andrew Cuomo. I mean, he was the old school. They haven't come up with new, fresh blood that actually relates to the majority of Americans. So they've lurched far to the left. I mean, this Mamdani has ideas that are just ridiculous. But that is today's Democratic Party, not just here in New York City, but across the country.
Do you see them using this, as they're saying, the critics are saying, and I can see it happening because they don't have a message or a cohesive movement right now inside the Blue Party. Can they use something he's doing to go forward?
Well, look, you've got the leaders, so-called leaders of the Democratic Party, from Chuck Schumer to Hakeem Jeffries and others, the governor, that won't endorse him. And
I wouldn't say Hakeem Jeffries won't endorse him. He won't pick a lane, Jason.
That's
guy,
true.
Yeah, I mean, that's different. And I know you're friends with him. That's how I met him in the first place, was through you.
Yeah,
you got to pick a lane.
Well, the problem is he's lurched so far to the left, and he does galvanize a lot of very radicalized young people. But there are people out there that just can't relate to this. He wants to seize the components of production. He wants to get rid of ICE. He says he wants to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he gets here. The global intifada, I mean, government-run grocery stores, you name it, this guy's for it, and that scares a lot of people. And that's why they're going to flee out of New York City as well.
Seize the components of production. What does that mean to you? Like, how does life change here in the city?
Because I think he doesn't believe there should be billionaires. I think he wants to actually confiscate wealth and redistribute it.
Wow.
He believes in equality, not in the good sense, but in the idea that he's going to confiscate wealth and try to push it down to make sure everybody has the same outcome.
He's got a chameleon sense about him, though, I would argue. Because in the actual primary, and the final numbers came out after a recount yesterday that was forced because he won fewer than 50% of the vote, so that's automatic. So he was announced, again, officially the winner of the primary. So he's making headlines. That's why he was out when we just showed you. That's a victory rally that he's having right now, again. But he really was keyed in and voted by the richest people in the city. And the people that he purports to want to help with all these freebies gave Cuomo a 30% or a 13% spread. Why is that? Why didn't the poorest vote for Mamdani with all of his freebies?
Because I don't think they can relate to him. I think he is so radical, so far to the left. I mean, he just wants to eradicate Jews. He doesn't believe it. If you believe in the global intifada, you want to. I think there's some rational sense, particularly from people who maybe aren't of the greatest means, that this guy is just too far radical. It's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. I hope they coalesce around somebody who's more reasonable. I've never been a big Eric Adams fan, but I am right now compared to this guy, because I really worry about in this city. It's a dangerous place here in New York City. If you're going to dismantle law enforcement, you're going to get rid of them. You won't cooperate with ICE. This town is just going to turn to it. I can't say it on.
Yeah, I also think that he's somewhat chameleon because he didn't do his homework. Like, does he think the rest of us are stupid to believe that a mayor can get done the things that he's promising? He had a better chance as assemblyman for his own district, but I don't think he studied up Buttercup. We'll see.
Yeah.
Jason, good to see you.
Thank you.
Wait, don't go away. Axios is pointing out President Trump's, quote, day of swagger. No, we don't want to skip this. An excerpt. Trump and his team seemed to view yesterday, day 163, as his best day as president. A day when his brash, norm-crushing style was paying off in a series of wins. Yesterday, President Trump had a big win when his big, beautiful bill passed the U.S. Senate. He also visited Alligator Alcatraz, as you showed when I was talking with Congresswoman Kat Cammack. Its symbolic backdrop on the massive plunge in border crossings under President Trump's illegal immigration crackdown. Some other recent victories for the president include precise strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, which ultimately led to a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, still holding, the U.S. Supreme Court limiting injunctions, and market and job growth. CNN's data analyst Harry Enton breaks down polling on the Republicans' approval rating 5 months into the term of Republican presidents going back more than decades. Watch this.
George H.W. Bush, Bush 41, 46%. Bush 43, 59. You see Trump, the first term, 53. But look at this, 63%. He beats all the other Republicans on the board here. The bottom line is Donald Trump is making history with the Republican base. He is more beloved by this Republican base than any Republican base loved any GOP president 5 months in. It is history making.
Jason.
Well, he's on a roll. Look, he had a mandate, and he's executing. He's only 6 months into his presidency. He's checking every box off. I dare you, House Republicans. You're going to go and vote against Donald Trump and the vote later today? Yeah, you got these big Instagram muscles out there. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Go back and talk to your district. How dare you? You're going to take on Donald Trump, and you're going to take his signature piece of legislation to lock down the border and do all these things and have historic numbers, and you're going to vote against that? I think that's what leadership's banking on. I think later today they're going to put up that vote and dare them to vote against it, because there's no way. They rode the Donald Trump wave. They used his name to get elected, and now they're going to vote against him? No way that happens.
Wow, day 63. Day 163 comes with, what did you say, big Instagram muscles?
Yeah, they're all tough. I've been in there. Yeah, we're all tough. And then you walk outside and you go out and you deal with Donald Trump breathing down your throat. Good luck with that.
This is weeks of wins, though, because that's what we put up. And you can see it wasn't just day 163. It is a culmination of a lot coming forth. And so you also have the flip on the Democrat side. What do you do against deliverables?
Well, Democrats have no plan. They don't have personalities, but they have no issues. What is their issue? Oh, we hate Trump. Well, America loves Trump because he's delivering. The world's a safer place. He didn't start world wars. The inflation's come down. Even the Waffle House got rid of their egg surcharge. It doesn't get any better than that.
My goodness, Jason. Wow, 163 days for President Trump. You just laid down the gauntlet for your own party to get that bill through.
Yes, do it. Get on with it. Go home, enjoy 4th of July, and be just grateful that Donald Trump is the president of the United States and that you're part of it.
All right. Jason, thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.